The desert doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. When the sun dies low across the mesas, the sky bleeds red, and the earth feels older than God himself. That's when the scream came piercing. Desperate carried on the dry wind like a prayer gone wrong. It wasn't the cry of a coyote, nor the wail of any night bird. It was human. Too human. Elias Red Sky stopped dead at the bluff. His frame was still as stone, one hand resting on the rifle that had been his only companion for years. His black hair was bound back, his dark eyes scanning the horizon. Sharp and unblinking, the scream came again, closer this time. Ragged, torn from lungs that had already suffered too much. Elias moved. He descended the slope with the silence of a hunter. Boots gripping sandstone, his body blending into the shadows. Every motion was deliberate, learned from a childhood of stalking deer and avoiding cavalry patrols. The desert sun bled lower, casting long shadows that stretched like claws across the canyon through a twisted wash, past thornbrush and the sun-bleached bones of a mule long dead there. Streaks of blood smeared across pale stone. Fresh, still wet in the heat. The trail led forward into a narrow cut of canyon where the air itself felt wrong. Elias crouched low, senses taut as wire. He rounded a bend, then froze. Two men, white men, one tall, with a filthy beard, and a Union Army belt buckle shining at his waist like stolen honor. The other shorter, nervous eyes darting, a pistol loose on his hip. Between them, dragged across the sand like a broken animal, was a woman. She was barefoot, her skin raw and bruised, the tatters of a dress clinging in strips to her body. Her hair hung wild, face streaked with dirt and blood. She stumbled as the tall man shoved her forward. "You run again," he barked, voice cutting the canyon air. "And I'll skin what's left of you." The smaller man laughed, reaching for the last shred of cloth, still clutched to her chest. That was when Elias stepped out. The first shot cracked like thunder. The tall man howled, dropping as blood poured from his thigh. The second man reached for his revolver, but Elias was faster. His bullet snapped the hammer clean off the pistol before it could fire. Hands up. The command was quiet, but it carried the weight of stone. The smaller man froze, sweat glistening on his brow. We didn't mean she's property, we got papers. I said, hands trembling. The men lifted their arms. The woman staggered backward, collapsing against a rock. She curled into herself, clutching the tattered cloth with both hands like it was the last piece of her soul. Her lips trembled. Her voice cracked, no louder than a whisper. "Please, don't take the cloth off." Elias lowered his rifle an inch. He approached slowly, carefully, like a man stepping toward a wounded fawn. She flinched as he drew near. Fear etched into every line of her face. "Yvonne," he said softly, "you're safe now." Her eyes searched his, wild and brown, desperate for any sign of deceit. For a moment the canyon held its breath. Then she sagged forward, a small nod breaking through her. Trembling behind them, the tall man groaned, spitting blood into the dirt. "We had orders," he hissed. "She belongs to Nathaniel Harrow." Elias's gaze cut to him, cold and sharp as a blade. "No one belongs to Harrow," he growled. "Not anymore." That night, beneath the broken ledge of a canyon cave, Elias tended her wounds. He bound the cuts with clean water, wrapped strips of cloth around her shoulders, gave her a blanket against the chill. She gave her name Clara Monroe, but little else. She clung to a heavy satchel like a child clutching a doll, refusing to let it go, even in sleep. When her breathing finally deepened, Elias leaned close, unbuckling the flap, just to make sure nothing dangerous hid inside. He told himself, but what he found stopped him cold. Inside was a ledger, thick, bound in oilskin, its pages filled with names, ages, work assignments. Next to some entries were single words scrawled in red ink: punished, deceased. His stomach tightened as he turned the brittle pages until one name carved itself into his chest. Mourning Dove, Apache, deceased. March 1879. His mother. The fire crackled low. His hands clenched around the ledger, breath coming harder, memory swelling like a storm in his ribs. This woman, Clara Monroe, hadn't stumbled onto his path by accident. She carried more than scars. She carried proof. Proof that his past wasn't buried. Proof that the desert wasn't finished with him yet. In that cave. As Clara slept, Elias Red Sky realized something he'd tried to forget. Some ghosts don't rest. Some wounds don't close. And some names demand to be spoken again. Morning crept into the canyon, slow and merciless, painting the rocks in shades of ash and gold. The fire had burned down to embers. Clara stirred beneath a ragged blanket, her breath sharp as pain tugged her awake. She saw him then, Elias Red Sky, sitting cross-legged by the fire, running a whetstone along the edge of his knife. He didn't look at her. Not at first. His eyes stayed fixed on the blade, on the rhythm, as though the act itself was the only thing holding him together. You're not a bounty hunter, she rasped. Elias glanced up, dark eyes steady. No. And you didn't rob me? No. She tried to push herself upright, groaning as her leg buckled. So what do you want? He nodded toward the satchel she had tucked under the blankets. His voice was calm, but it cut like flint on steel. That ledger, it carries names? One of them was my mother's. Clara's breath hitched. Her gaze darted to the satchel, then back to him. You read it. Just a page. His voice hardened. That's all I needed. Silence stretched between them, heavy as stone. Then Clara exhaled, trembling. Her name was Mourning Dove, wasn't it? Elias gave you a small. Solemnut. I didn't know, Clara whispered. Her eyes softened. But she didn't apologize. She couldn't. Instead, she reached for the satchel, pulling it to her chest like a shield. My brother Jonah. He worked a silver claim outside Magdalena. Months back. He wrote me. Said he'd found something big. Then, nothing. Vanished. I went looking, asking questions where I shouldn't. Her voice faltered, but she forced it on. They tried to scare me. Burned the boarding house where I stayed. Paid off the sheriff. When I wouldn't quit, they came harder. So I went underground, disguised myself as a laundress, slipped into Harrow's compound. She pulled back the blanket from her shoulder. Beneath, the skin was raw and twisted, branded with a mark like cattle. Elias's jaw tightened. He looked away, but not before she saw the flash of rage in his eyes. That wasn't from those dogs chasing me, Clara said. That was from Nathaniel Harrow himself. His way of saying you don't leave alive. The cave seemed to shrink. the air thick with smoke and memory. Elias's hands curled into fists. There were rumors, he said, voice low, that Harrow was building camps, using prisoners. My people said it was lies. Just another greedy white man. Nobody listened. Clara's eyes met his. He's not just stealing ore. He's stealing lives. Over 100 souls. Maybe more. If I can get this ledger to the federal marshal in Santa Fe, it's enough proof to burn Harrow down. Elias stared into the fire. Jaw clenched. You can't ride yet. Not like this. You'll break before you get 10 miles. I don't have 10 miles. She shot back. If they catch me again, it's over. And my brother, Elias cut her off. You're no good to him dead. Her breath caught. Anger warred with despair in her eyes. You think he's alive? I don't know. Elias said quietly. But if he is, he's waiting on someone who won't stumble half dead into a noose. Clara sank back against the stone, clutching the satchel. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, softer, almost broken. So what do we do? Sit here while Harrow keeps running his slaughterhouse? No. Elias said. His voice was steady now. Deliberate. We find someone who knows the land, the tunnels under that canyon. Old smuggler routes? I know a man who mapped them. Who? Diego Serrano. Half Yaqui. Fought for both sides. Then for himself? He hates Harrow more than most. And you trust him? Clara asked. Elias's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. No, but I trust his hate. That night, they rode beneath a silver moon. Clara leaned against Elias in the saddle, her body weak, but her grip strong on the satchel. He led on foot, guiding the horse through dry washes and thorny scrub. She studied the way he moved, like a man carved from the desert itself. Shaped by droughts and storms and silence, she wanted to ask him what it felt like, growing up in a land that was always being taken. But she didn't. Some wounds didn't need salt. By dawn, they reached the ruins of an old Spanish mission, its walls crumbling, its altar long abandoned. Elias gave a sharp whistle too long. One short, from the shadows, a figure emerged, tall. Sun darkened, hat brim pulled low, rifle in hand, red sky. The man said in Spanish, "You look like hell." Elias gave a tired smile. "Then you must be staring in a mirror." Diego Serrano stepped closer, eyes narrowing at Clara. "You bring company now. She's got something Harrow doesn't want seen." Elias answered. Diego raised a brow. "So do I? It's called memory." They made camp in the broken chapel. A fire burned low. Clara slept with the ledger clutched against her chest. Diego cleaned his revolver. Elias sat silent, sharpening his blade. Red sky. Diego said softly, "You know this won't end with anyone riding off into a sunset." "I'm not looking for sunsets," Elias replied. His voice was steady, eyes fixed on the knife. "I'm looking for truth." Diego nodded once. "Then we'll find it." "Or under it?" Outside, the stars burned low and unblinking. The same stars Elias's mother once prayed to, and for the first time in years, he whispered her name. Morning dove. Not into silence, not into the void, but into the fire. The desert night was heavy, pressing close as the three riders moved like phantoms. Elias led on foot, reins in hand, eyes sharp to every ridge line. Clara sat slumped in the saddle, pale but awake, clutching the satchel with both arms. Diego Serrano rode ahead, humming under his breath as if the darkness itself needed distracting. By dawn, they reached a narrow bluff. Below stretched a basin carved deep into the earth. Smoke curled from chimney stacks. Shacks clung to the hillside like scars. At the center rose the compound of Hollow Creek stone walls, rusted gates, and a tower armed with a Gatling gun that pointed down on the valley like a vulture's beak. Clara's breath hitched. Her eyes searched the yard, catching on the bent figures chained to ore carts, men and women in ragged clothes, their backs bent, their faces hollow. That's where they keep them, she whispered. Elias followed her gaze. More than 100 souls. Each step weighed down with chains. His stomach turned, but his face stayed stone. How many guards, he asked. At least 20. Diego muttered. Spitting dust. And that gun on the tower will chew us to bone if we go straight in. Clara looked to Elias, voice tight. You're sure about the tunnels? Diego grinned without humor. I dug some of them myself. Smugglers used them to haul silver out without paying tax. Harrow bought the land and kept the shafts hidden. I still remember the way. Then that's how we go. Elias said. That afternoon, they circled west, reaching the mouth of a forgotten mine shaft, half buried beneath cottonwoods. The air that seeped from its darkness smelled of sulfur and rot. Diego dropped to his knees, pulled away rocks, and revealed a trapdoor of rotted planks. This way. Clara hesitated at the edge. The tunnel yawned before her, black as the grave. Elias offered his hand. She took it, steadying herself. Then, with a final breath, they descended. The air was close, suffocating. Lantern light flickered against damp stone. Shadows, twisting along the walls. Every step crunched on grit that had lain untouched for years. At the third turn, Diego raised a hand. We're beneath the holding cells. 2 more chambers. Then the inner wall. That's where we set the charge. Clara's hand tightened on Elias's shoulder. Elias. Her voice shook. I saw him. Yona. Up on the bluff. Limp in his left leg. It was him. Elias's chest tightened. He gave a single nod. Then we get him out. They reached the grate in silence. Elias knelt, setting powdered charges beneath the rusted bars. His movements were precise, steady. This wasn't his first time with explosives. Stand back, he murmured. The blast tore through the tunnels like a thunderclap. Stone groaned. Dust choked the air, and the grate buckled outward. Shouts rang above. The clamor of boots. The ringing of a bell. They had minutes, maybe less. Elias was first through the breach. The chamber beyond stank of sweat and decay. Crates stacked high. Shelves lined with ledgers and records. Clara darted forward, rifling through the files. This is it, she gasped. The master ledger. Every death. Every transfer. It's all here. Diego grabbed her arm. Then we move. Now, Elias shook his head. His eyes burned, locked on the stairwell above. Get her out. Both of you. What about you? Clara demanded. I've got something to settle. And before she could stop him, Elias vanished into the smoke. He moved through the lower halls like a shadow, silent and certain. One guard stepped into his path. Elias's knife silenced him before the man could cry out. Another turned a corner. Pistol half raised. Elias shot him clean through the chest, 2 steps at a time. Elias climbed the service stairwell. He knew exactly where Nathaniel Harrow would be perched above his empire, watching it crumble. At the top, a heavy door stood ajar. Beyond, lamplight spilled across polished wood, and there he was, Nathaniel Harrow, tall, pale, draped in a silk vest and cravat, as if the dust of the desert dared not touch him. His hair slicked back, his smile thin as a razor. Well, Harrow drawled, voice dripping disdain. The Apache ghost returns. I always figured you'd come crawling back to me. Elias leveled his pistol. His chest rose and fell, steady as stone. This time, he said, I don't plan to walk away. Harrow chuckled, as though they were men sharing a private joke. He drew his revolver with smooth confidence, eyes glittering with cruelty. Then let's make it worth the moment. And in that high chamber, above the screams and gunfire, the 2 men moved as one. Narrator pause. Music swells, leaving the audience on the cliff's edge. The desert outside burned. Hollow Creek erupted in chaos, chains snapping, guards shouting, fire eating the night. But here, in this tower of smoke and glass, the story balanced on the edge of a single gunshot. Elias Red Sky against Nathaniel Harrow. One man carrying the memory of his mother, the other the weight of blood and greed. The duel had begun. The tower shook with gunfire. Outside, Hollow Creek roared into Chaos Guards shouting, chains breaking, flames racing along the rooftops like the desert itself had come to claim what was stolen. But inside Harrow's office, the world narrowed to 2 men. Elias Red Sky, Nathaniel Harrow. The first shots tore splinters from the walls, shattered glass from the windows. Elias ducked behind a beam, ribs screaming from the climb. Harrow's revolver cracked again, echoing like thunder across the yard. You think you can stop this? Harrow's voice cut through the smoke. Kill me, and another will take my place. Men like me don't even multiply. Elias stepped from cover, eyes burning. Then I'll keep killing until the desert is clean. Their guns roared together. The blast lit the room in white. Harrow stumbled, silk vest blooming red across his chest. His smile faltered, twisted, and froze as he dropped hard onto the polished floorboards. But Elias didn't walk free. The tower groaned, beams splitting. Fire chewed its bones. A falling timber struck his side, pinning him down. Pain lanced through his ribs, but he dragged himself forward, pistol still in hand, until Harrow's eyes glazed over and saw no more. Only then did Elias let the weight crush him. Down in the yard, Clara and Diego fought their own battle. Jonah Monroe lay slumped against the north wall, wrists shredded raw from iron manacles. Clara dropped beside him, sobbing his name. His eyelids fluttered open for a breath, then closed again. Alive, but barely, moved Diego barked, firing his rifle into the dark. Guards swarmed like hornets, muzzle flashes sparking across the yard. They dragged Jonah over rocks, Clara clutching his body, Diego covering their backs with leaden fury. A bullet tore his side, blood blooming dark. But he didn't slow. Not yet. At the ridge, Clara turned once. just in time to see the tower collapse in flame. Her heart broke at the sight, but there was no time for mourning. Jonah groaned, breath shallow, forcing her legs to carry him onward. Diego Spoon, teeth clenched. Go. I'll hold them. No, Clara's voice cracked. Not again. His grin was fierce. Blood in his teeth. Corrida, this was never my story. Yours isn't finished yet. And before she could answer, he charged down the slope, firing wild and unrelenting, his shouts echoing like thunder. Clara's tears blurred the fire. She staggered upward with Jonah on her back. The night, splitting with screams and gunfire until the basin fell behind them. By dawn, the three of them reached a narrow canyon. Clara collapsed, cradling Jonah against a flat boulder. Her whole body trembled, lungs burning. But they had made it. Jonah stirred, whispering her name soft. Broken, Clara wept, pressing her forehead to his. I never stopped. Jonah. I never stopped looking. Footsteps scraped the rocks behind her. She spun, hand reaching for the rifle. And there he was, Elias Red Sky, bloodied, limping, face streaked with ash, but alive, his arm bound tight against his chest, his eyes carrying more pain than flesh could bear. Clara Rose, tears falling freely. You made it, she whispered. He gave a single nod. Not pride, not victory, just peace. I couldn't leave it, he said hoarsely. Not again. For a long moment, they stood together in silence as the desert sun climbed the horizon. Behind them, Hollow Creek still burned, smoke staining the dawn. Sky black. 3 days later, in the town of Socorro, Clara placed the ledgers into the hands of a federal marshal. The man's face hardened with every page he read. Telegrams flashed across wires. Orders! Dispatched! Soldiers roused from their slumber. Too late to save Hollow Creek. But maybe in time to stop the next one, Jonah was carried to a healer. Diego Serrano was buried in the ruins of the mission chapel. A rough marker carved by Elias himself. No songs. No speeches. Just a memory left to the wind. And Clara opened a schoolhouse by the Rio Grande. A place where children of all blood could learn to read, to write, to remember. Each spring, when the mesquite bloomed, a braid of red willow bark appeared on the doorstep. She never asked who left it. She never needed to. The desert forgets the names of its conquerors, but it remembers the fire of those who refuse to be buried. And somewhere out there, beneath the wide New Mexico sky, Elias Red Sky walked on, scarred, silent, carrying the names of the lost like stones in his heart, not for vengeance, for remembrance, for the truth